It has been 110 days since we had the Australian no-show. We race as one. That is going to be the hashtag for 2020. Mercedes have a new livery, and we have a triple header of racing. Do you remember what is DAS? We'll discuss all of that this evening. Welcome to the Pit Box. Okay, sure. All right. Gary Formato is joining me. I'm just checking everything around here. Gary, how's it going? Did you expect us to go racing in 2020?
I tell you what, listen, it's been it's in anticipation. I tell you what, it's been fantastic. The whole week, Monday morning, got to start Formula One weekend again. So, if it only serves just to show that there's light at the end of the tunnel, I tell you what, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I must tell you, I'm so excited for this, Gary. I really am. I know that it is going to be completely different, and we're going to go through exactly what's going to happen in terms of the protocols, in terms of the procedures, what we're going to see this coming weekend. So far, we've got 8 races on the calendar, Gary, and I suppose this all is dependent on whether or not people test positive for COVID-19, if anything like that happens. They look in between 15 and 18 races by December. As we sit right now, just before the first race, I mean, do you think that's possible?
Listen, I mean, that is probably the most difficult question to answer, because I think, right now things are so fluid. No matter where you are in the world, I don't think you can nail anything down. The fact that we actually are here in Austria this weekend, I think it's just really a fantastic opportunity. I think the big thing is for the teams and drivers that are in the championship. How do you approach the championship? The approach is quite simple. You just got to go out and win every race and just hope that you're on it from the get-go. You don't have the luxury of coming back with developments and upgrades later on in the season and what have you. It's now all or nothing kind of thing. You've got to look at it from that point of view. Of course, yes, from a spectator point of view, you want as many Grand Prix as you possibly can get. But how that actually works out, I certainly am not intelligent enough to give an answer to that with the way things are going right now.
Yeah, I tell you, it's been a phenomenal job by Ross Brawn, Chase Carey, the whole Formula One community, the various governments, the sporting bodies, to even get to this stage where you have to have this amount of people at a race. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through all of the teams, all of the upgrades, who's got what. And you brought up something very, very important, and I completely agree with it. I firmly believe this season is going to be high risk and hopefully high reward. You can't now sit and say, okay, well, let's wait until race 3 or race 4 to see where we are. You've only got 8 races. And I'm going to say it up front now, a team like Ferrari are already completely on the back foot, Gary, but we'll get to that in a short while. But it's high risk, high reward. Go for it.
Absolutely, and you've got to look at some of the innovations that are there. I mean, we all know that Mercedes-Benz have got what they've got in that car. And personally, I find it difficult to believe that anybody else is going to give them a hard time, And if for example, this weekend we see a Max Verstappen really, stick to, work towards stick to the form book in terms of these past couple of races, and he is quicker, Hamilton's good enough for a second place. Surely you've got to believe that. So they're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, before we go into everything that is different, one of the things that is different, well, number one, it's raining in Austria at the moment, and they're expecting about 50% chance tomorrow afternoon for rain. But, we'll have to wait and see. But one of the things that is, it's just, I saw some pictures of the media room and the people sitting with their social distancing so far apart from each other. And here we've got a graphic of a journalist having a conversation, Gary, with Kevin Magnussen from the Haas team. And I mean, you can see, they have to practice the social distance. They have strict rules from the FIA and a code of conduct that they have to adhere to. Otherwise, they get ejected from the pit lane and the paddock. That's how serious the situation is, as we know, worldwide, but specifically here at Formula One. The protocols are incredibly tight.
Yeah, they are tight, and I fully agree with it. It's the only way to get these events on, and I think the one thing that you can be, thankful for with regards to Formula One, there's budgets, there's resources to be able to implement all of these protocols, and that's why we're actually having an event. So the Formula One guys are lucky that they're out there and they're actually on track this weekend racing. And I suppose these protocols and whatever, we've all heard about them now for so many months, but even just for all of us in our everyday lives. I mean, I think it's just as critical as anything to observe them. So it's good to see it actually happening in Formula One, and maybe maybe we'll learn a couple of lessons from them this weekend.
Well, the one thing that I've been saying and speaking about over the last couple of days is we've seen what's happening in the English Premier League. We've seen some rugby down in New Zealand, which is a full contact sport, and they seem to be doing exceptionally well. English Premier League seem to be doing well. Strangely enough, the sports where you actually have so much social distancing, for example, golf, are all of a sudden coming up with COVID-19 cases. So I firmly believe that if Formula One get this right, for these first 3 races that we're going to have, Gary, it could well be a model that a lot of other sports around the world and businesses might go and adopt. So I think it's a very, very testing time for the world of sport and specifically motorsport.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just tough for everybody. I don't think there's a soul on the planet right now that's not finding things tough. It's just a very difficult way your life has just changed. And, as you quite rightly said, yes, maybe there are some lessons to be learned this weekend. And you've got to believe that there will be, because, I mean, let's be honest, Formula One is from a technology point of view and just what they are, it is right at the forefront from a sporting code, certainly. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. And, I just hope that we get through a weekend. There's no surprises like we had in Australia, or any sort of potential to not hold us back from racing. I just want this race to happen on Sunday, and I want us to enjoy and hopefully get a fantastic race as well.
Yeah, let's hope for that as well. Okay, let's go through some of the things that, of course, some of them can be quite obvious. Some of them are not that obvious. It's closed door racing. No spectators for the first 8 races. From there, we are unsure if the calendar does get expanded. There might be some spectators as well. There are no guests, Gary, no sponsors. Team members are limited also at each race. For example, the media and the journalists are not allowed into the pit lane and into the paddock area as before, so they can't get the lowdown on some of the gossip that goes on around there. But these are the protocols that have to be in place in order for this to become effective. And in time, hopefully, things will relax. And the last one I want to do on this one, interviews will respect social distancing. No big motorhomes, so they're not going to be elaborate as we usually used to seeing in Europe. All personnel have to wear face masks, and all personnel and drivers, team members or whatever, are tested 5 days before the event, and then they're tested, Gary, every 5 days. So we've got 21 days of racing now, starting from tomorrow with 2 Austrian Grand Prix and then the Hungarian Grand Prix. These guys are going to get tested at a minimum of 4 times, getting the swab stuck down up their nose and down their throats. But, those are just some of the rules and regulations that are in place.
Yeah, look, I think it's as you said, they've got to be there. But I think, looking at the budget caps that are going to come into force next year, and you mentioned the amount of people that are going to be at a track. Look, the press. I mean, I've got to say that's going to make their job very difficult, and you need to have the press on the ground. So as soon as that can all happen, I think the better it's going to be. But from a team point of view, there's enough technology, and there's a lot going on that allows a lot more people to probably work from base, and we're probably going to see a lot more of that happening even next year. We're probably not going to see the sort of amounts of people back in Formula One. So it's almost in some ways kind of a dry run for how life will be in terms of the amount of people going to races in Formula One going forward. I think that the party on the outside of the track and the driver motorhomes, and a lot of them are staying at the track as well instead of going to hotels. That's going to be quite good on Sunday nights. That would be something that I wouldn't be mind being part of that whole campsite on a Sunday afternoon. But you know what? It's sort of like a throwback to days of old, to be honest with you, when people were at the track and things were a lot smaller and even more accessible from some points of view. Obviously now with COVID-19, it's not accessible like it was. But so I just think the guys, make no mistake, they get onto the track. The cars are going to be prepared just as well as they've always been prepared, looked after just as well as they have, and the guys are going to go out and race. And put on a great show. And I think the guys must be sort of, we spoke about it before, saying, maybe a bit strange to not race in front of people and all the rest of it. But I think the guys are just so hungry to get up there and put on a show for people watching TV, which they know is going to be in the absolute millions this weekend. And let's hope it all works out for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. It reminds me of Pakisa, Gary, years back when we used to have the MotoGP there. And a little town like Welkom here in South Africa didn't have the hotels, and the bikers and riders were all staying at the track in
Yeah.
motorhomes. And also, if you go back to the simplicity and the normal part of racing, don't forget Formula One is incredibly glamorous and sexy, and you have these wonderful motorhomes and people stay in five-star hotels and private jets or whatever. But the normal racing person goes there in their van, has their little caravan or something at the circuit, and it goes, it is in a way going back to a lot of its roots. Vettel is staying on the circuit, as I'm sure a lot of other
Yeah.
drivers as well. So,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a different kind of respect, a healthy respect again.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not all bad, and like I said, if all the protocols work and we get through it, and we have the next weekend's Grand Prix all goes according to plan. Well, then we kind of like got something going. We've got the ball rolling, and we've proven that this can happen. It can work as it is for now, and let's get on with the show, which we all love.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, a couple more little points. I'm just getting a couple of messages over here. There we go. Yeah, we're on live. Thank you very much. A couple of other things just to go through in terms of the PPE about this. Formula One has got their own track and trace app. Okay, so everybody knows where everybody's situation is at the time as well. And the word bubble is being used, and we mentioned it in our last program as well. So the various team members all work within a specific bubble, and they stick around within that bubble. So they can't really interact, and it's going to be different. They can't just go and have a chat with their mate at, from Mercedes, go and chat with his mate at Renault, etc., etc. So they stay within their own little bubbles. However, if somebody has to move out of the bubble, they are entitled to do that. And as long as they just practice the social distancing. And the other thing is some jobs might take longer than others. For example, a changing of an engine is now not going to take 40 minutes. It might take an hour or whatever. The FI has given them dispensation for that in order for these tasks to be done. Okay, which is good. Now let's get on to Pirelli and the tires. So every Grand Prix, Gary, we know within weeks before the Grand Prix actually comes around, which tires have been allocated to the various teams, what the team or each specific driver has decided. It has now been decided because of the situation that we are in and encountering. Pirelli have given a standard allocation for all of the teams for all of these Grand Prix. They're going to have 2 hard compound tires, okay? They're going to have 3 medium compound tires and 8 soft compound tires over there. And that will be dependent, Gary, whether that soft is going to be the red or, it'll be the red, but it's not going to be the red with the line through it now. So I think it's also going to make life a little bit easier. You've got hard, medium, and soft, and that's it. That's what you're going racing with. Of course, if there's rain, they've got the wet weather tires as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm just going to go back to the fact that next year budget caps. These are all the kind of things we may well see going forward. So, and it's with what's happened this year, you've got to take a more of a simplistic view on things in terms of tire choice, etc., and just let people get on. This race for us is really just we've got an event going. Let's see how it pans out, and we just got to get on with it. There's no need to sort of say, well, it was better like this before, better like that. We just got what we've got, and we're going racing. That's it.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. A couple of other things that are going to be a little bit different. There was talk, and initially what they were going to do is the drivers would go straight from their pit box out onto the grid and set up on the grid and go racing. I think it was Beat Zender from Alfa Romeo said this is just completely unacceptable. We are still going to have a full grid procedure. The grid procedure is going to take place. There are going to be less personnel on the grid with all of the teams and drivers, and it's going to be reduced from 40 minutes to 30 minutes. And then when there's the 3-minute board, they're only allowed to be 8 people around the car. So I think that's also important that we still have certain elements. I think it would be rather strange for the guys to just drive out of their pit box, get onto the grid and go racing. So I'm glad that they've come to some kind of agreement over there. And the final point of just some of the procedures for this weekend is the podium. There isn't going to be any podium, Gary. We don't know what they're going to do. They're suggesting that the driver's going to stand in front of their cars and somebody goes and gives them a trophy, but they're saying it's a little bit of a secret. But, those are things that are going to just be a little bit different. But, we're just bringing them up this evening just to let people know. But, I mean, you go racing, you get your trophy, or you win. That's it.
Yeah, they're going to use a drone. And the guys are going to stand next to the car, and the drone is going to drop the trophy at each driver. But listen, that kind of stuff, as part of the show as it is, yes, the grid walk and for example, Brundle's grid walk and all that exciting stuff that we normally get, it's fantastic. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about the race that's going to happen this weekend. And we'll get back to podiums, we'll get back to grid walks, we'll get back to all that kind of stuff. Let's get back to racing first. Yeah, I certainly can. So this weekend we are getting ready for the Austrian Grand Prix, the first round of the 2020 World Championship. And we are just trying to sort out a link with Sasha. His voice has gone a little bit wayward, and we will be back with you as soon as we have sorted it out. Our team is working on it as we sit here and speak to you. Yeah, so we look at the circuit, the Red Bull Ring, of course, the former Österreich Ring, of course, and it's a very, very different guys today, but yet still a very, very exciting circuit that has thrown us some fantastic racing over the last couple of years. And we can remember Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc last year's Grand Prix, and of course Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton were racing wheel to wheel at the circuit. So a fantastic circuit, a beautiful part of Austria that's in, and of course I think a welcome to everybody, and just welcome to the 2020 season this weekend at the Red Bull Ring.
Technical issues, but I mean, yeah, we've got a fantastic circuit to go racing on. Also, no spectators are allowed, Gary, but this is also in the forest. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some people hanging on trees outside of the circuit, which I think is going to be quite amazing. There was one lone spectator there today, apparently outside the front gate, and just waving to everybody that was coming in as well. So, and that just made me feel so warm, because I can imagine that kind of passion for drivers and for them seeing that.
I think you're 100% right. And if you've got your camo gear, you get it on this weekend and you go and bunker down and find a place to I mean, listen, if you're into Formula One and you're as crazy as we are about Formula One and racing, that why wouldn't you trek to the forest and be able to go and watch these Formula One cars? We all know what they do to us when we see them in the flesh. It would be. Yeah, listen, we obviously won't see it, and even if they were there, they probably wouldn't show us. But I'm sure there are going to be a couple of people, looking at cars this weekend.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, now there's something also that's going to be quite, some people will say exciting. I'm going to leave my reservation and my judgment on it until we see the first Grand Prix. There are going to be quite a lot of new graphics, and Fritz is going to show us just one of the graphic pictures of what we're going to see. This is, for example, one of them, the low speed, the turning angle, it's going to show us some of the G-forces. It's going to show us who's quicker through the corners, who's not, etc. So, Gary, there are two things a couple of things that bother me on this. The first thing is it's going to just look like, in my opinion, a computer game. It's just going to be too much, but as I say, I've got a reserve judgment on that. The other one is, and I think this could be quite beneficial, is it might be able to tell us which are better cars through various corners, which are better drivers through various corners. And if at the end of a race, Gary, we're allowed to get all of that data, you can actually tell the difference between, two drivers and sit there and say, well, by the way, Grosjean is actually not that bad, and so-and-so is actually not that fantastic. What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that as you said, let's see how they actually they visualize for us and how they work. But I think it's great because it's very difficult to also, it's an information-driven sport, and it's very difficult to understand just for the layman to watch a car going, around the circuit, say, wow, these things just watching cars going in circles. With that kind of information available to you, as you quite rightly said, we can sort of start to see, listen, that driver's on the hard tyre at this point in the race, that tyre's on this tyre. Take a look at the difference in cornering speeds. Even compare earlier stints versus the current stints or latter stints with the same car and same driver on different tyres, for example. So you're going to get a lot more information to understand just where these guys are going faster, how they're going faster, etc., how perhaps the car, the attitude changes when you've got different fuel loads, different tyres on. So I think it could be great, and I think we're going to give it a chance. It's a new innovation and probably need a little bit of, there'll be some teething problems, you could assume. And if there are, I think we've got to work with it. So the more information you can get, from these cars during a Grand Prix and while they're on the track, I think is only going to be a plus.
Okay, that I agree with. I just hope that, it just doesn't look too gimmicky. That's my only concern, but let's wait and see.
I agree with you, but some of the sim racing, and look, my eyes are bad these days. So if I looked at some of the sim racing during a hard lockdown, it took me a couple of seconds to realize it was actually sim racing. And the graphics are pretty good, but let's see how it all works out.
Okay, so listen, we're going to go through all of the teams, and from what we have been told, there's sort of upgrades that they're going to be bringing for the first race of the Grand Prix. But there's something very, very important, and it's not going to go away. And just because everyone's feeling, I don't know, whooshy about Formula One returning, wonderful. It's still the most competitive sport in the world, and people are going out there, and people do not have to agree with everything. Now, one of the things that came out from winter testing before the Australian Grand Prix and just before the Australian Grand Prix started was the DAS system that Mercedes has, the dual axle steering system, where the steering wheel can go forward and can go back, and by this that actually changes the toe and line of the actual wheels. Now, there is one team that was adamant that is going to protest it, and that is Red Bull Racing. Gary, just because everyone's feeling nostalgic and lovely in some kind of ways, this is not going to go away. And I firmly believe that Christian Horner and Red Bull will protest this device if it's used.
They may well do it, Sasha. And I agree. It's a motor race at the end of the day. And as I said to you, now I'm kind of like ignoring all the other stuff that's going on there. I just want to see the cars drive out the pit lane. I want to see them practice. I want to see them qualify. I want to see them race. What happens before and after, to be honest with you, is not that big a deal to me, as long as it all just happens. Yeah. That's really where I'm at. So yes, people are going motor racing. This is Formula One. It's the pinnacle of the sport. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds being spent in this championship. And this is going to be how it's always been. People want to win, and nobody's going to give an inch. And they're going to take what they can get. Just the DAS system, let's see if they use it or not. But I tell you what, it seemed, when you look, it's one of those things that you looked at and went, wow, that's pretty simple. It's a problem that's been around for a long time, and it looked like it could work well. So let's see what they do with it this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mercedes is still going to be definitely the team to beat this coming weekend, and of course this coming season as well. So we're going to go in alphabetical order. Let's just go through the teams, a quick little refresher, and also some of the updates that the teams are going to be bringing. Of course, we've got the Alfa Romeo All-in team, and that's what it is this season. Gary, they are so reliant, together with the Haas team, and we'll get to that as well, on the technical abilities of the Ferrari organization. Alfa didn't look overly fantastic in winter testing, but it's, and you cannot believe that they're going to be coming with too many upgrades because they have to rely so much on Ferrari.
Yeah, that's right. And if Ferrari not doing too well, then you've got a bit of a problem if you're in that situation. So, and like Haas are. So, going to be a tough year for them if that is in fact the case. But listen, a good team there. You've got Giovinazzi, who I think improved towards the end of last year, and Kimi Räikkönen, who you can say what you like, the oldest guy in the pit lane right now, and doing it for fun, in his own words, is still a fantastic driver. And I think, a great yardstick. I think the one thing I can say is that, because Giovinazzi improved the way he did last year, he's got to start off the season actually beating Räikkönen if he wants to secure himself as a regular Formula One driver for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're looking at Giovinazzi there and, sort of overlooked for the Ferrari seat for 2021 in terms of Carlos Sainz, everyone touting that Giovinazzi is going to be there. But he hasn't at this stage done enough to beat this man, Kimi Raikkonen,
Correct.
and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm a massive Kimi fan, and I'd love to see him in Formula One, for still a couple more seasons. I think he's a great ambassador for the Alfa Romeo brand as well. And if he's got the measure of Giovinazzi's Formula One career could be extremely short. So in 8 races, Giovinazzi has to beat Kimi Raikkonen convincingly.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to our next team. It's the Scuderia Alpha Tauri Honda Formula One team. And we're going to get, we've got Pierre Gasly. And, of course, we've got Danny Kvyat in this team. Gary, Honda are bringing huge updates, brand new engines to the Austrian Grand Prix. They won this last year with Max Verstappen and the Red Bull team. This is going to be a midfield team that you're going to have to watch very, very carefully. Gasly's an ex-Red Bull. Kvyat's also an ex-Red Bull and back in the lower team. But 2 spectacular and very, very quick drivers. Don't discount this team for really upsetting, 4th, 5th position in the championship.
Well, I mean, last year was the first year that Toro Rosso, that was called back then, AlphaTauri, had scored podiums. That car was good. We've got to remember Brazil, the end of last year. It was a fantastic result for the team. Yeah, so they want to get out there and try to sort of pick up from where they left off last year, and I certainly hope that they can.
Yeah, I must say, I'm really looking forward to it as well. AlphaTauri, for those who don't know, they changed from Toro Rosso to AlphaTauri, which actually means, Toro Rosso. And it's actually their clothing brand of Red Bull. So that's where the name comes from. Let's get on to the Haas team, which is the next. Gary, they have done no development during this season. They're very, very limited when it comes to resources. Most probably looking for, I wouldn't say a handout, but looking from some assistance from the Formula One team. They've got 2 very, very decent drivers. But knowing that they're coming through, into this first Grand Prix and the first couple of races with no new development and no updates, Gary, they are very much going to be behind the 8 ball. And I just hope that they can get something going for them so that they have a future in Formula One. It is most probably a team that worries me a lot more than even a team like Williams.
Yes, I've got to agree with what you're saying there. There's no doubt. The team, that came into Formula One, I think shot the lights out in terms of the expectation. They were fantastic the first couple of years. Last year, unfortunately, it just didn't go to plan. Very difficult season for them. They had that rich energy situation going on. It just didn't work out. And unfortunately, when you're coming off a season like that now, and after what we've all just been through and what the teams have been through, it's going to be tough. We can be rest assured that the teams with the budgets have been doing a lot of work during this period. There's no 2 ways about that. And as you said, to arrive with nothing on the car from Barcelona or Australia, it doesn't bode well. But let's hope it's not the case, and they can spring a surprise, because as you said, I think the future of that organisation in Formula One is dependent on that.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, listen, I have the greatest respect. I think Grosjean and Magnussen, I think, are 2 really, really superb drivers. Now we get to what I believe is my problem team for 2020 so far, Gary, and that is the Scuderia Ferrari team. Of course, we've got Sebastian Vettel, and of course, we've got Charles Leclerc. I watched a press conference about an hour just before we went on air, Gary. Sebastian Vettel, you can see he's not taking his dismissal or his non-renewal of his contract at Ferrari too well. We basically sat there and said all prior discussions with Ferrari were that we were going to continue, and then all of a sudden he got a phone call in May, and he was told that they're not going to renew his contract going forward. He said from there, all conversation has stopped. Now, there are a couple of elements. Gary, we got Ferrari that in preseason testing were nowhere. A lot of people said, there might be sandbagging. We have learned that that is not the issue. They do have an issue with the car. They're saying their only big updates are coming in Hungary, which is in 2 races' time. Last year at this Grand Prix, they nearly won it with Leclerc had it not been for his tyres going off. I'll put dollar down that I don't think they're going to be in the top 8 this weekend.
Listen, for every Ferrari fan out there, probably definitely hopes you're wrong. But I think just to go back to the beginning of your statement there, the fact that Ferrari dropped Vettel, I think that's what it boils down to. A 4-time world champion, without a doubt, one of the best in the sports. Yes, he's had his moments where it hasn't worked out for him, in particular when he's had a fast young teammate that's joined him in the team. It happened with Ricciardo and at Red Bull. It happened last year to a degree as well. You just got to sort of wonder what the position is going forward there. I do question it. I've got to be totally honest with you. Yes, Vettel, I mean, I'm sure would have even discussed a salary knock. He was one of the highest paid drivers out there for the last couple of years. I don't know. It doesn't. We've seen this kind of thing from Ferrari before at certain times in its life, and it just hasn't worked. When things haven't been right, it hasn't worked. So I don't know. I agree. The car, I don't think it's going to be quick, and top 8, top 10, who knows where they are going to be, but definitely not Red Bull and Mercedes-Benz Challengers.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the dynamics, Gary, of Sebastian Vettel versus Charles Leclerc. Leclerc, of course, now is the wonder boy at Ferrari, and I am massively upset that Sebastian Vettel is not going to be racing there. But let's look at some of the dynamics. Yes, they do race for a team. They've only got 8 races to try and prove themselves or even try and win a championship. But there are going to be no favors from Sebastian Vettel. Even at Red Bull, we know where he was told to move over for Mark Webber. That never happened. If anything, he might have that firecracker and get that elusive championship that he's always wanted to do, to emulate Michael Schumacher. But as a team, I don't expect Vettel to play too much of a team member game this year.
Absolutely not. There's no ways he's going to do it. And look, it's a very difficult job because at the end of the day, if the team doesn't really want you to be there, there's not many. There's a few little things that need to happen for you not to be on the pace, or at least as quick as your teammates. So you'd like to think that would never happen in Formula One. There's too much investment. Everybody's being paid a lot of money, and they've got to do the best they can possibly do. But yes, it was really happening last year. Vettel was not going to give an inch. We saw it was in. I can't remember which Grand Prix it was now offhand, but he wasn't unhappy. He wasn't going to give an inch to Leclerc, and it's going to be the same now. But you've also got to understand that Leclerc's, without doubt, their chosen driver at this point in time. So, and Vettel, I think, has got a tough job ahead of him this year. Yes, it does look like we've unfortunately lost Sasha again. If you can hear it, it's not sounding too good. So we're going to start working on that link once again and try and see if we can get that fired up for you and bring Sasha back onto your screen with a clear voice this time. And of course, I just want to have a look and see what we've got coming up next for you on the show this evening while we work on getting Sasha back up to speed and back on our screens. Yeah, so the next team we were going to talk about was the McLaren team. Of course, the last year that Carlos Sainz will be with McLaren. They retain Lando Norris as well. And I think a big Carlos Sainz is probably going to approach the year as the driver with he's got nothing to lose in the team. He ended off last year fantastically well, scoring that podium, inheriting that, getting that podium by default in Brazil. But I mean, he's just signed a Ferrari contract as you've just spoken about at Ferrari. I think he's out there to go and enjoy himself. The young Spaniard is quick. He's highly determined. And of course, Lando Norris, I think, is the guy in that team that has to perform and I think really start to try and outshine Carlos Sainz, who's just signed that Ferrari contract to put him in a position to be at least equal with Daniel Ricciardo when he arrives at McLaren next season. Yeah, so sticking with Carlos Sainz, there we see him. His final year in McLaren did a fantastic job, really put the points on the table last year. I think, there's a couple of times in the beginning of the season where Lando Norris in qualifying certainly looked like he had a slight edge on Carlos Sainz, but come race day, he was out there scoring the points for the team. Here we are looking at Lando Norris, one of the superstars, I think, in the making in Formula One. Was outstanding last year, as I said, in his early season qualifying. Really, took the McLaren team as a whole right back up to at least the front end of the grid, and certainly put them in a position to race, certainly in qualifying, from a point of being one of the best team other than Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes-Benz. So I think really a young superstar, and let's look out for him this year and see how he performs with Carlos Sainz. And I said a very important year in terms of setting himself up for the arrival of Daniel Ricciardo next year. And of course, this year, the championship favourites, and I think everybody kind of has to agree on that one, is going to be the Mercedes-Benz team. We spoke about the DAS, the dual axle steering that they tested out in Barcelona at the beginning of the season. Even without that, you've got to believe that the car, the team, and everybody is just the team to beat. They've had a fantastic run of championships, as you know, with Lewis Hamilton. And an important year for Hamilton in terms of chasing his 7th world title, which will allow him to equal Michael Schumacher. Taking a look at the livery of the car this year, it is not in the traditional silver, but in black. And I think the car looks fantastic. I've got to be totally honest with you. I just, I enjoy good-looking racing cars, and it certainly looks like a good-looking racing car. Okay, so we're going to take a look at our two Mercedes drivers. Sorry, we are battling to get Sasha back on air. Unfortunately, we're not too sure what's crawled into the system. Of course, the drivers overalls to match the new livery this year at Mercedes-Benz, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Bottas, you've got to believe, a man that is certainly, he's going to be fighting for his career. We've got Hamilton going for his 7th world title, and the one man that could certainly stop him is Valtteri Bottas. You've got to remember, last year had a good start to the season, was able to put in a couple of victories and put some pressure on Hamilton from that point of view. Only 8 Grand Prix. Hamilton won't have that much time to claw back if he doesn't get off to the start that we expect him to do this weekend in Austria. So Valtteri Bottas, certainly a man that could upset the 7th world title for Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, so we're still trying to get Sasha back on. As soon as we do, we'll have him back talking.
I hope I'm back. Felix.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Gee, sorry, Gary. You can't believe that somebody who's got 100 meg up and 100 meg down line has these kind of issues. Anyway, listen, I want to go back. I want to go back to. I know you're talking about Mercedes and Lewis and Valtteri. In their black car and their black overalls now for this season, and there's a whole lot of shenanigans around that as well. The car looks incredible, and you've got to believe that there's two things here. Valtteri, this is his chance to try and take it to Lewis Hamilton, but on the other side, you've got Lewis Hamilton, who more than likely is going to be more determined than ever to go and just ensure his legacy is even bigger than it already is.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if you heard what I was saying while we were having problems with your mic there, but in my view, Bottas is probably going to be one of Hamilton's biggest problems this year in terms of him not winning that 7th world title. If Bottas gets off to a good start, as he did last year when he came out and won Grand Prix, put some pressure onto Hamilton. Hamilton doesn't have the entire year, a normal year, to get back on track. The pressure's on everybody, including Hamilton, from the start of qualifying or Friday practice this weekend.
Okay, let's move on to our next team. And this could be the team that sits somewhere in 3rd or 4th in terms of the pecking order. And that is the BWT Racing Point Formula One team with Sergio Perez and, of course, Lance Stroll. Pre-season testing, Gary, we looked at this car and we went, whoa, that is a silver Mercedes painted pink. It looked very, very similar to the 2019 Mercedes. And when it went out on track, Gary, was incredibly quick as well. So this is a team to watch out very, very sharply during these 8 races. I mean, they could well be quicker than Ferrari this weekend, in my opinion.
Listen, they definitely could. Now, I wouldn't be surprised they rocked up when they had, a dash on that car. You don't know what's been going on. Yes, the car looks great, and going into Australia, as you just said right now, it was one of the teams and cars, and I was quite excited to see how they were going to perform. I think Lance Stroll's big opportunity to be in a car which is pretty good, and then he's come under a lot of criticism for being the wealthy son of a team owner, you can say in this case, and driving the car. But he has won championships. He's been quick. We know what Sergio Perez is all about, and this is really a big chance for both of those drivers to do something special this year.
The one thing that I say about Lance Stroll, if he can get his single lap qualifying and single lap runs just that little bit better, as opposed to being down in 15th and 16th, and he's up there in sort of 9th and 10th, Gary, you'll see a different kind of Lance Stroll. We've seen him drive through traffic, and he's a terrific racing driver, but he's got to improve that single lap performance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to start near the front. And I mean, in a strange way, with a short season like this, your qualifying is going to be very, very important, because obviously close to the front, we know that there's less potential for incidents going into the first corner or the first lap indeed. So you've almost got to get everything right for this Formula One season. There's no second chances, and that's why I said I think from the moment you drive out on Friday, you've got to have your A game on and get the processes done and get that car as near to the front as possible. And I think that this new car of theirs is going to allow them to do that. And it's up to them now to take advantage of a car that is definitely a lot better than what they had last year or the year before.
Yeah, that's for sure. We've got 14 hours and 10 minutes until free practice one. That's how I'm counting things down already. All right, our next team, of course, the Aston Martin Red Bull Racing Team. They won. This was a fantastic win last year in Austria by Max Verstappen. If this car is good enough, and when I say good enough, is reliable and gives just and is just as quick or just maybe a little bit slower than the Mercedes, Gary, Max Verstappen, without a doubt, is going to be a contender for world champion this year. The car's improved. They've got Adrian Newey. They will go and create a couple of controversial moments with Mercedes-Benz. But, I mean, if you had to choose just one driver right now, mine would be Max Verstappen. This guy's got it going for him. And I think Lewis Hamilton, at times, is a little bit scared of him.
There's for sure that's the case. I mean, he's still young. And yet he's got a wealth of experience in Formula One behind him already. We all know that he arrived in Formula One as the youngest, I think, Formula One driver to get there. Of course, the youngest driver to win a Formula One Grand Prix. And Max is just, I love watching Max drive the car. He's aggressive. He does not give an inch. He gets stuck into it. Perhaps on occasion he's gone a little bit over the limit in terms of his aggression, but he's a great driver, and I think just such a great asset to Formula One as well. And I really would like to see him having a go with Lewis Hamilton. I know we spoke a little bit about the dash thing, and you're talking about Red Bull now. If the principles of dash, it could give them a massive advantage. So yes, I think that Red Bull are going to do whatever they're going to need to do to be able to give themselves, as best a playing field as possible. So let's see. Who knows? They may have a system of their own coming along. You don't really know how it's all going to pan out, but it's going to be interesting. And this is when you're going to see also Max Verstappen pushing at his absolute best. They I think realize they don't have something in the bag which Mercedes might have, and it's going to make them go out and really charge.
100%. And listen, let's take nothing away from Alexander Albon. I mean, he was very unlucky to get taken out by Lewis Hamilton, or turned around in Brazil last year. He could well have had his first podium. This guy's also very, very quick, but he's got a massive mountain to climb in order to be up there with Max. But if you can go out there and assist Max, they really could be troublesome for the Mercedes guys. So a team really, really to watch out for as well. Plus the new Honda engine coming through, I think it's really looking good. Now, just before we go into our final couple of teams, a couple of things that we need to just remind people of, Gary, is that since Australia and COVID and everything sort of closed down, it's not as though these teams have been able to sit and spend endless hours and days and, testing new systems and upgrading parts, etc., etc. They all were forced into the mandatory 60-odd days when no one was allowed to go and work. So anything that they bring to this first Grand Prix in Austria is only stuff that would have been in development already. And most of these updates would have more than likely come out in Barcelona, which is very, very traditional in the Formula One season. But it's not as though they've just had carte blanche, Gary, and this complete ability to go and test new parts and build new, wings, etc., etc. So I don't think anyone has a significant advantage over anybody else.
No, I don't think so. You're quite right in what you say. I've just got a sneaky suspicion that Mercedes-Benz didn't show their full hand in Barcelona, and I think that's for me the biggest thing. So yes, they're arriving here with what they had in Barcelona, but I think they definitely, as I said, I think they've got an ace up their sleeve, and they're going to be super, super difficult to beat.
Yeah, and I tell you, in Barcelona, they were still quicker than everybody else by a country mile. So you expect him to be brilliant.
It kind of reminds me of the time when Braun arrived there with the double diffuser and had to back off after the first session and fill the car up and run with heavy fuel loads just to not show their hand and how fast that car actually was. I kind of get that feeling from Mercedes-Benz right now.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, let's get into our next team. I'm trying to see where our next team is over here. I think it is the Renault, of course, the beautiful Renault car. Danny Ricciardo, who will leave the team at the end of the season, and Esteban Ocon, who comes back to Formula One. He's now sitting saying, well, is he going to be team leader come 2021? Or is he going to, find someone like Fernando Alonso or Valtteri Bottas there as well? But Renault, Gary, also coming with major upgrades. They've got nothing to lose. And this is a team, Gary, in Formula One. We need them there in the top 3, top 4, running consistently all of the time. They've got such a pedigree in the sport. And I think they've let themselves down over the last couple of seasons, and hopefully things have balanced themselves out within that team so we can actually see some really, really strong performances from them.
Let's hope so. You got a French driver in there now, and I think that in terms of balance and sorting things out, let's hope that works well with the top Renault management. And yes, of course you want Renault to be up there. It's a manufacturer team, and it's almost embarrassing for them to have the kind of season they had last year. And I don't think it's any secret as to why Ricciardo is leaving and going to McLaren. If you've gotten a chance to be in a works team and the car's quick enough, you're going to stay. The bottom line is the car just wasn't any good. And I think what does worry me is that Ricciardo was very easy to make his decision after the test in Barcelona, which I don't think is that encouraging for the pace of the car as it stands.
Yeah, it does worry me a little bit as well. Okay, let's go through to our next. I think we're getting up to the Williams team. There we go. The new colors. They lost their sponsorship, the Rocket sponsorship, and they've got now Sofina on the side of the car. And Sofina, of course, is the company that is owned by the new driver at Williams' father, Nicholas Latifi. And Gary, with everything that's been happening in the off-season, the team is up for sale. Some people are looking to buy it. However, it must be said that there's been a lot going on within that factory. They're coming with new upgrades. Their Barcelona test was not nearly as shameful as it was in the beginning of 2019. So, I don't believe Williams are going to be 19 and 20 on the grid.
I hope not. And I tell you why I hope not. I want George Russell to get an opportunity to show people what he's about in a car that's a little bit better than what the car was last year. We're looking at him now on screen. I think this guy's a fantastic driver. Definitely, I think, a star of the future, but you need the right equipment. It just goes to show in any motor racing, in Formula 1 in particular, if you don't have the right kit underneath you, you're not going to be able to perform. So I would like to see George Russell getting a full crack at it and at least being able to show people what he can do. Remember last year, he did trounce Robert Kubica, although Kubica, as we know, had come back after that long break and that serious injury that he had, and a lot older than he was the last time he was in Formula 1. But I really rate Russell, and I really love to see him having a fair crack.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing when you sit and see George Russell and you see Lando Norris, a couple of the other guys, and you're going, George Russell's the GP2 or the Formula 2 champion. Trounced everybody else, is just unbelievable. When he goes and tests for the actual Mercedes team, he's usually quicker than Lewis and Valtteri, and yet he's in a car that just doesn't showcase his talent. So yeah, I really hope that we see George Russell being able to show exactly what kind of a driver he is. There we go. I think that's all of the teams. Is that right? I'm trying to go through my script over here and so we've got Nicholas Latifi is going to be the other driver, Gary, for Williams. Also, knows how to drive, but is really up against it against George Russell.
Yes, okay. So do we have to be? Do we have to be? Can we just call it how we see it on the show? Are we allowed to say it how we see it?
100%.
At the end of the day, Russell got there on talent. Russell signed a contract. He got there. You know what? Latifi, and he may be a great driver, and I know the guy and what have you, but at the end of the day, you're taking paid driver to a next level when you've got a father that owns one of the opposition teams, is backing your current team. You know what? It's really up to him now to prove to everybody, and it's kind of a Lance Stroll situation. I think a lot of pressure on him now to go and show people that he can actually drive. You're up against it from all corners right now. So if he performs, you can't take away that it's a tough job that he actually has on his hands this year to compete with Russell, as I say, and just compete with other off-track stuff that's going on around him that unfortunately is associated to drivers like him that have made their way to Formula One like this.
Yeah, very, very much so. And the pay driver situation, I think, is going to showcase itself over the next couple of months quite significantly in the world of Formula One. So we've got this first Grand Prix coming up, Gary, this weekend. A lot of teams are going to be coming with a lot of updates as well. There is one thing that you have to be concerned about. When you're coming with all of these new updates, you have to ensure that you have a lot of spare parts. And with having 6 races in 7 weeks, you might come with some new adaptation and say, oh, this could work. Next minute you break it and you have to go back to old parts. So there is that sort of fine line between being too aggressive and being more sensible. But with such a short season, in a way, as I said right in the beginning of the show, high risk, high reward, hopefully.
Absolutely. I think you've got to throw caution to the wind. If you've got a part and you've got one of them, and it's going to make you fast for that weekend, you put it on the car and you give it a full go. If you knock it off into a million pieces, then so be it. You put the old part back on and you do whatever you can do with it. But it's as we said right in the beginning of the show, it's all or nothing. You've just got to go for it now, and get it right. So the pressure, we say that, but it's going for it, but keeping it on the track, not having unnecessary crashes. If it's a crash where somebody crashes into you and it's a first step accident, well then so be it. But you've got to keep the car on the island at all times and maximize every session to get the work that you need done. And I think that's important. You just cannot afford to go off. So it's that balance, and that's what being the best racing driver in the world is about. And these guys are supposed to be the best drivers in the world. It's about getting the absolute maximum out of that car and getting it back to the pits in one piece most of the time to carry on with the job.
Yeah, I must say, I cannot wait for tomorrow because I think every session is going to be so vital. Before we talk about this weekend and race times and your predictions as well, Gary, there's just, just so sad. A couple of weeks ago, and I try and sit there and think to myself, what did this man do in his previous life to have such unfortunate situations? And that, of course, I'm talking about Alex Zanardi, who had a stint in Formula One, went over to America, did exceptionally well, won there many times, came back to Formula One, didn't work out, went back to the States, had the horrific crash, lost both of his legs, became an Olympic gold medalist, as you can see, cycling on his hand cycle. And then Gary, in one of these races has a horrific accident and seems to have a similar kind of neurological damage that has befell Michael Schumacher. It couldn't happen to a person who just doesn't deserve it at all in the world. So sad what's happening with Zanardi.
It absolutely is, and and I listen to you speak now. I actually get quite emotional about it because it's funny enough. One of the people that when you're sitting back and watching TV with your kids and you put on some YouTube video or whatever it may be of Zanardi and use him as an absolute inspiration of a human being. So it's just so sad that it's happened like this, and you just can't believe that the same person could go through so much in one lifetime. It's just absolutely unbelievable, but just very, very sad. I've always thought Zanardi was just a great guy, and obviously we know he's a fantastic driver. Just an inspiration to the world, and it's just a very, very sad situation.
Yeah, there we go. And I mean, we're thinking of him, and hopefully he recovers from this just unbelievably unlucky incident and accident that he had. Gary Formato, 10 a.m. South African time is going to be our first free practice, and then of course the race at 3:10 on Sunday afternoon. It looks as though the weather is going to be clear. There might be a little bit of rain tomorrow, but for the weekend it looks like it's going to be a dry race. I'm hoping that Red Bull are going to be up there to try and push Mercedes, but I do have to agree with you and believe that Mercedes, if anything, I think are going to be so powerful this weekend. It's going to take an unbelievable effort from anybody to try and get close to them.
Yes, I think so, and I think there's a fire burning inside Lewis Hamilton right now that nobody else really understands apart from him, and I think that is going to be something that is going to push him to go even faster than we've seen him go before, and I believe he's going to be just impossible to beat right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Well, listen, we're going to have some very crazy shenanigans that are going to happen all over this coming weekend. But I think it's going to be fascinating to watch, and just so happy that Formula One is back. And you know, for us watching it on TV, it might not be that different, but in a way, it will be. And let's hope that everyone is safe. Specifically from racing incidents, but of course also from COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and we get through the first weekend unscathed, which means that they're on the right model going forward.
Let's hope it is the case. But you know what? I've got to just say something. There's one thing that I did forget to do today, and it was going to get the beers. So I think I was I was slow off the mark. I didn't realize it was Thursday already. I was so excited I forgot to get the beers. But anyway, it's going to be great, and I can't wait to see.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Gary, always great to chat to you. We'll chat to you, of course, next week, and I'm sure we'll chat over the course of the weekend as well. There we go. That is a wrap. I'm sorry about some of the technical issues I had from an audio side, but I'll try and figure it out. I'm not the most brilliant technical oak, but we'll figure it out. Huge thanks to Fritz and to Henk at raceday.tv for putting us on air this evening. As always, just superb. Gary, enjoy the race. Everybody who's watching, enjoy the racing this weekend. Just to let you know, 9:30 this evening, an hour and 20 minutes, is the press conference, a shortened press conference. It will be on TV from the first free press conference from today in Austria, if you want to watch it. Yeah, from Gary and myself and the whole team, listen, thanks very much for your company. Can't wait for the racing to start. We'll catch you again very soon. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Take care. Ciao.
Follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at F1 Sasha. Follow us